Now, I quite often get asked, what do you check in your vehicle before you leave? On a trip, on a trek, for your travels, wherever, four-wheel driving or not, or just driving between towns within Western Australia or Australia as a whole. I've got a few tips that I'm going to happily share with you, but you need to check your vehicle over. They're all simple stuff. You can do it at home, you can do it wherever you're staying, but make sure you check your vehicle over. Now, don't make the mistake of, if you've got a hire vehicle, that you can just assume that your oils and your waters and your tyres and everything like that that you need is all perfectly fine. There are a lot of companies that hire out four-wheel drives, especially in regional areas. They don't do the preliminary checks. They will only come out when a vehicle gets given back to them, and they will check it for panel damage and tyre damage. They won't often check all the major stuff. So you want to take it upon yourself to check the vehicle over, and that way you've got peace of mind when you're out in the bush. Before leaving home, you should do your general maintenance checks. One of these also includes testing your headlights, your low beam and your high beam. You want to make sure that you've got both your headlights working at a reasonable level, and you want to make sure that you've got at least one spare light globe in your glove box or your kit bag, because if you've only got one headlight, for one, on outback roads, it's going to really heavily restrict your line of sight, and you could miss some wildlife, especially kangaroos. There's a lot of kangaroos on the roads in Australia. And the other reason is because if you don't have one of your headlights functioning, then chances of getting pulled over by the local police are pretty high. They don't like it when you don't have a functioning headlight, especially at night, especially in regional areas. So make sure when you're doing your preliminary checks before you leave your house to check your headlights. Before you vacate as well, make sure you test your UHF. The easiest way to test it is to jump on channel 40 and just call out a breaker and ask for a radio check. If it's functioning properly, you will get a response and someone will call through and they'll tell you loud and clear or some word similar to that. Test it before you go anywhere. Now, you see most people have got a UHF radio in their vehicles. That's a handy tool. You can keep communication with other vehicles and stuff like that, but you can also use them to call for help. Bear in mind, please try to stay off channel 5 or channel 35. That's 5 or 35. They are the Australian emergency service channels that you can use to get help or render some type of assistance. So if you're going to use channels and you're going to just have banter with your mates, stay off 5 and 35. Let the guys that really need them actually use them. Don't just play around, because it is a serious thing. Deaths can occur. Something that gets overlooked by a lot of people a lot is your jack and your spare tyre. You want to make sure your spare tyre is in reasonable condition and it's going to be road safe for you to get to help or your destination, whichever one you're going for. The other thing you need to do is you need to check your jack. You need to make sure it's oiled. You need to make sure you've got a tyre lever that actually fits the vehicle, and you want to make sure that it's kept in an accessible place. I've seen people pull over in four-wheel drives because they've got a flat tyre on one of our highways out in the Australian outback, and they've had to pull all their gear out of their vehicle just to get to their jack. It's frustrating and it's time consuming. You don't want to do that. The other thing too, when you're doing your checks on your tyres, your 4 normal tyres that are on your vehicle, make sure you check the tyre pressure in your spare tyre, because there's no point in having a spare tyre if it's flat and you don't have a compressor or some means of pumping it up. So make sure before you leave your spare tyre is checked and it's good to go, because at most of the time, if you've got something, you're going to need it, and chances are it's either not going to be there or it's not going to be usable or functioning in any way. So check those first before you go. Your vehicle snorkel. See this bad boy? Hot tip for you. Undo this little screw here that's holding your snorkel head. Flip that bad boy backwards when you're driving on corrugated roads, dusty areas, or you're behind other vehicles. Your vehicle will benefit from it. It'll be sucking in less dust, there's going to be less rubbish in your vehicle's engine, and of course that's going to lead to less breakdowns. And the last thing you want to do is break down. So keep that bad boy's lifeline going, because your snorkel is your air intake and it is your lifeline of your vehicle. Another handy thing you can do is, if you're going to hire a vehicle, take your mobile phone with you and photograph all the panels, because there are some guys that try to blame you for scratches, dents, dings or damage to a hire vehicle that you simply haven't done. Photograph all the panels, and then while you're there at the hire place, offer to send them a copy of the photographs. They've got a record and you've got a record. It's peace of mind. If you find yourself in a situation where your vehicle breaks down and you're in a remote area, especially in the outback or out in some bush track where there's not a lot of people around, or the chances of passing someone in a 24-hour period are low, don't leave your vehicle and start wandering off. Usually you've got water in your vehicle, you've got food in your vehicle, and you can use your vehicle for shelter. Not only that, if there is a search party that is out looking for you, they will spot a vehicle very, very easily from the sky. However, they won't be able to locate you as fast. One person walking around in scrubland is really hard to find, and sometimes if you've got the brighter or the lighter colored clothing, it's a little bit easier to find you, but it's still a lot easier for them to locate you if you are still with your vehicle. Stay with your vehicle. Reverse lights, park lights, brake lights and indicators are just as important to check as your headlights. The problem with checking them sometimes is you need a second person, but they do need to get checked before you leave for your travels. Just like your headlights, your tail lights need to get checked. You want to make sure that they're nice and bright and they're all functioning. And the other thing you want is to make sure in your glove box or your kit bag you've got spare globes. Make sure you check your tail lights. Tyres are a very important factor of your four-wheel drive. You want to ensure that your tyres are in reasonable condition, they've got reasonable grip in them, and you want to make sure that when you are traveling off-road, you lower your tyre pressure. The reason for lowering your tyre pressure is because it's going to have less wear and tear on your vehicle, because your vehicle's not going to be struggling so much, and it's also going to help maintain the tracks, especially bush tracks or sand tracks. The last thing that you want is to get stuck on a sand track down to your axle and you're digging all afternoon. I've done it, many of my friends have done it, none of us like doing it. Get your tyre pressure down just that little bit. Furthermore, when you're on corrugated roads and your pressure is not at your standard road pressure, you're going to have a smoother ride. your vehicle's going to vibrate less, it's going to be less wear and tear on your suspension, and it's going to be a smoother ride. I run these tyres at 40 psi on the road. Right now, on this semi-soft track, I'm running them at about 29, give or take. But lower your tyres. Keep the tracks open for everybody.